Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, members of the press here with us at the Radisson Hotel and online. Thank you for joining us this afternoon, joining the CCRIF team, the CCRIF management team, as well as our chairman and deputy chairman. This session this evening is really a press engagement, a meet and greet, and press social. Why are we having this event today? We are having this event, or CCRIF is having this event, because, as you may know, CCRIF is not domiciled in Grenada. We are a virtual company with 30 members. And when we are in country, opportunities like this allow us to meet with key stakeholders. And one of our key stakeholders is the press. So we're here this afternoon to engage you, to allow you to ask us questions that you may have, to allow us to share information with you about CCRIF, and to allow you to ask us any questions about aspects of our operations that you may want additional information on or you may want clarity on. So let me introduce you to the persons that we have here today. And I will start with Mr. Timothy Antoine. I know in Grenada, you know him. He is Grenadian, and he's also he's a chairman of CCRIF, but you also know him in his substantive capacity as the governor of the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank. So, Timothy. Next to Timothy, to his right, is Mr. Isaac Anthony, and he is the Chief Executive Officer of CCRIF SPC. And many of you, as you write, would write CCRIF as the Caribbean Catastrophe Risk Insurance Facility. And since 2014, we have become CCRIF SPC. To my right is Mrs. Sandra Bailey, and she is the Deputy Chairperson of CCRIF. And to the very end of the table is Mrs. Gillian Gala, and she is the Chief Operations Officer of CCRIF. To get us all on the same page as to what CCRIF is about, we're going to share with you a very short video on CCRIF.
CCRIF is a regional catastrophe fund that limits the financial impact of devastating hurricanes, earthquakes, and excess rainfall events by providing quick financial liquidity when a policy is triggered. CCRIF operates as a development insurance company as the products and services it provides are for the benefit of the facility's members. CCRIF is a captive insurance company, as its parametric insurance products attract risks that are priced too high by the traditional markets. CCRIF provides a bespoke insurance solution that enables it to provide unique and tailored insurance coverage that is not readily available in the commercial market. Today, CCRIF offers 6 parametric insurance products for tropical cyclones, based on wind and storm surge, earthquakes, based on ground shaking, excess rainfall, based on volume of rainfall, the fisheries sector, the electric utilities sector for transmission and distribution, and the water utilities sector. But what is parametric insurance? Parametric insurance makes payments based on the intensity of an event, for example, hurricane wind speed, earthquake intensity, volume of rainfall, and the amount of loss calculated in a pre-agreed catastrophe model caused by these events. Payments under parametric insurance are therefore detached from a specific underlying physical asset or piece of infrastructure. Today CRIF has 30 members, 10 more than the original 16 governments that joined in 2007, 19 governments from the Caribbean, 4 from Central America, 3 Caribbean electric utility companies, 3 Caribbean water utilities and 1 tourist attraction. CRIF has demonstrated that catastrophe risk insurance can effectively provide a level of financial protection for countries vulnerable to natural disasters. For the past 3 years, members have ceded risk totaling over $1 billion to CRIF. In other words, during these years, CRIF members purchased more than $1 billion in insurance coverage. Since 2007, CRIF has made 75 payouts totaling almost $359 million to 21 of its members, all within 14 days of the event. Assessments have revealed that CRIF payouts have benefited over 3.5 million persons in the Caribbean and Central America. Most of the CRIF payouts, more than 60%, have been used by governments to address immediate needs post-disaster, from providing food, water and medicines to clearing roads. Also, payouts have been used for repairing critical infrastructure such as schools, supporting the tourism sector post-disaster so that the country does not miss the upcoming tourist season while hotels await payouts from their indemnity insurance, and supporting the agriculture sector, etc. As a development insurance company, CRIF is committed to building resilience in the Caribbean and Central America and implementing a well-developed technical assistance (TA) program. The TA program has 4 components: the Scholarship and Professional Development Program, Regional Knowledge Building, Support for Local Disaster Risk Reduction Initiatives, and Disaster Risk Reduction in Schools. CRIF's total investment under the TA program is in excess of $7 million. Under the TA program, CRIF has provided 175 scholarships totaling $1.8 million to Caribbean nationals, placed 171 CRIF interns at national and regional organizations with an investment of $460,000, awarded grants totaling approximately $3.5 million to NGOs, academic institutions, and governments, supported regional partners through MOU arrangements with an investment of $1 million. The importance of catastrophe risk insurance, especially in the face of a changing climate, cannot be overemphasized and must be viewed as an essential component within government's fiscal policy frameworks and an important climate change adaptation strategy, as we strive to advance the sustainability agenda and achieve the SDGs. CRIF SPC, the Caribbean and Central America Development Insurance Company.
At this point, I will now invite our chairman to provide a few remarks, and that will be followed by our CEO providing a few remarks.
Thank you very much, Master of Ceremonies, Ms. Emmanuel. I want to say good afternoon to all members of the media here gathered in the room and those who are joining us virtually, and also to send our warmest greetings from CRIF SPC to all our viewers and listeners wherever you are in Grenada or around the world. We're very pleased this week, CRIF, to be in Grenada, as many of you know, to commemorate the 20th anniversary of Hurricane Ivan. And last evening we had a, if I may say so, a wonderful event of remembrance, looking back, but also looking forward. And I think, and of course we ended it with the time capsule, and you may hear a little bit about that later. What I do want to say, and the video you just heard, summed it up very well, so I'll be brief. CRIF is more than an insurance company. CRIF is a development insurer. It means that we do more than simply offer policies, financial protection for our members. That is our primary business, but we also do, as you heard, internships, scholarships, and technical assistance through small grants for NGOs and community groups. And last evening, we did announce as part of a celebration or commemoration of IVAN 20, IVAN 20 plus, as we call it, we announced a few scholarships. And I just want to take this opportunity again to repeat the awardees for this year and for this special commemoration of the IVAN plus 20 scholars. So the 3 IVAN plus 20 scholarships for students in Grenada, the persons are Ms. Shonda Gibbs, who is pursuing a Master's of Science degree in Natural Resource and Environmental Management at UWI Cave Hill. Shonda Gibbs. The second awardee is Ms. Roxelle Bartholomew. Roxelle Bartholomew, who will continue to read for a BSc in Civil Engineering at UWI St. Augustine. And the third awardee is Mr. Jevis John, who will continue his BSc in Geography at UWI St. Augustine. So those are our 3 special scholarship awardees in this IVAN plus 20 season, this special event that we've been having over the last several months, this being the 20th year or anniversary of IVAN. As has been indicated, we do other scholarships as well at the undergraduate level. Typically, a scholarship is valued at the postgrad level at $11,000 and at the undergrad level at $8,000 in any one of 4 Caribbean universities. And so we are pleased to continue to invest in our youth. And some of the areas, and I mentioned the scholarships so you get a feel, but some of the areas that we cover include disaster risk management, disaster risk financing, meteorology, climate studies, geography, environmental management, and risk management. And our commitment is to continue to invest in our youth with the expectation that our youth will invest in resilience of our region. What is resilience? Well, I like to refer to it as the capacity to absorb and withstand shocks and to bounce forward, not back, forward. And as a region, given our vulnerability to climate and given all of our experiences, including our recent vintage, it behooves us to constantly strive to build resilience. Frankly spoken, that is going to be and must be a lifelong pursuit for us as a region. And for us to do that, to position ourselves to do that, we have to invest in our youth in terms of capacity, and of course we have to invest in other things like infrastructure, like fiscal, financial, and so on, resilience. So we are here this afternoon to share a bit more about what we do, but also to help us understand how we could serve our region better. As we speak, we are now considering new strategic directions. We want to be able to do more because the truth is, even at $1.2 billion in coverage, we are underinsured as a region, and our countries are underinsured. And a lot of it has to do with the fiscal capacity, what they can afford. But to build resilience, we have to increase financial protection, financial resilience through insurance like CCRIF. And so we have to continue to build out our capacity to cover. The more we cover, the more we protect ourselves and give ourselves a chance to get, as we found with Hurricane Beryl, a payout when we need it most. And of course, always within 14 days. So we're looking at potentially hybrid products. We're looking at other things that may be of interest to our region that they cannot get otherwise. And we make the point that in this season, this climate season, where climatic events are, you've seen it, look at what we've seen in the United States in the last few weeks, increasing in frequency and ferocity, affordability becomes a very important issue. And we want to make sure that CCRIF is able to provide affordable insurance to our members, especially where the market simply will not provide it. The truth is what CCRIF offers cannot be found anywhere else. And we want to make sure that we continue to not just offer that service, but we continue to raise our game because the truth is the demands are growing. So I'll stop there in the interest of time and simply to say that we are committed to the region. We want to continue to serve. We want to continue to get better at serving. And we are always open to take suggestions and ideas on how we could do that. And with that, I'll conclude my remarks. And we look forward later on to your questions. Thank you.
CEO.
Thank you, Madam of Ceremonies. So Isaac Anthony, the CEO of CCRIF. I'd also like to join the chairman in saying good afternoon to members of the press, those present here at the Radisson Resort, and those participating or viewing from online. What I would like to say basically is that, first of all, I'm really happy to be here. Again, some of you will recall that I was here in July following Tropical Cyclone Beryl, when we came to essentially present some checks to the government and other beneficiaries of payouts which were made following that particular tropical cyclone event. But what I really want to do is just to give a bit of context or background to the excellent relationship that we've enjoyed with the government of Grenada over the years. And again, CCRIF, formerly known as the Caribbean Catastrophe Risk Insurance Facility, was established in the year 2007 following Hurricane Ivan. And the government of Grenada has been a member of CCRIF since the inception. But it is important to again remind you that CCRIF was established largely because of the impact that Hurricane Ivan had on the government of Grenada in particular. And I don't need to remind you of the sheer devastation that that particular hurricane event caused. And so today, Grenada, 17 years after, has been a member. The government has purchased, and in fact, the government of Grenada, is in a very unique position in that it is the only country or only member government that actually has all the policies on offer by CCRIF. So we do offer policies or coverage for tropical cyclone, excess rainfall, earthquake as well. And I think it was in 2019 that we introduced a product for the fishery sector called Coast. And in 2020, we launched a product for the transmission and distribution assets of the electric utility companies. And more recently, only this year, we launched a product for the water utilities under a program called QUIC. So between the government of Grenada and the public utilities, you have all the products. And what is really interesting is that after being a member for 17 years, Grenada received payouts for the very first time. For the very first time. The government received payouts, the central government, that is, received payouts totaling about $44 million. US dollars, Chairman is reminding me. And again, if we put that in EC dollars, Eastern Caribbean dollars, it is $116 million. So quite a lot of money that we would have paid within 14 days. But what is also instructive is that the government of Grenada received the largest payout on any particular policy in the history of CCRIF. But in addition to that, the government received about $500,000 on its excess rainfall product and about $1.067 million under the policy for the fishery sector, totaling about $44 million. Grenlec, your electric utility company, which joined CCRIF for the very first time last year, actually benefited from a payout of $9.3 million. And again, US, the governor of the central bank keeps reminding me, but we have to do the translation. That will probably be about 25 or so million Eastern Caribbean dollars. And NAWASA, your water utilities, within weeks or 2 or 3 weeks of joining CCRIF, received a payout of $2.2 million. So Grenada as a country received a total of about $55 or $55 million. So again, underscoring the real value of CCRIF, that we were designed, we were set up to be able to provide quick liquidity to our governments. And I'm pleased to say that over the years, from inception, we've been able to make payouts to all our members totaling $358.5 million. So I must say that I'm really pleased that the government of Grenada really availed itself of all the products that we had on offer, and we look to building on that over time. As the chairman indicated, we are looking to build on the success. CCRIF is generally acknowledged globally as a real success. We were the first multi-country risk pool based on parametric insurance, and since then, similar risk pools have been established in other parts of the world, such as in Africa, in the South Pacific, as well as in Southeast Asia. But we want to be able to do more, because I think we have to recognize that the protection gap remains wide. In fact, some would even say that the protection gap is even widening. And why is that? Because we are witnessing the ongoing increased frequency and intensity in hydrometeorological events, such as hurricanes, excess rainfall events, drought events, and so on. But we believe, as a development insurance company or a development insurer, we can actually do more. We can do more to help our governments. We can help them to close the protection gap. And let me quickly take this opportunity to add that while the payouts may seem small, relatively small, when compared to the overwhelming cost of rebuilding, the real value in the insurance that we provide is in the speed of payouts, that the fact that we're able to pay within 14 days. And why is that important? It is important because you need to be able to have the resources immediately to be able to respond effectively to the impact of a disaster. You can't have a situation where persons are dispossessed, all sorts of reasons, and we are not in a position to be able to respond. So, and of course, the government also has a responsibility for doing the rebuilding in terms of infrastructure, etc. So, again, we are very happy that, as I said, we've had this very long-standing relationship with the government. We look forward to building on that. We had a very important conversation yesterday, and I think the chairman did allude to that, with our development partners, because we are thinking very seriously about the future in terms of being able to do more. And some of the things that we are seriously contemplating, which would require the ongoing support of the development partners, because they were very key to the success that we are actually experiencing. We want to be able to increase our coverage to the extent that it is possible. CCRIF, as an insurance company, has the ability to provide coverage to governments of up to 150 million United States dollars per peril. Many countries are well below this. So we think that by working with the international development partners and other agencies, we potentially can, even if we may not necessarily get up to 150 million, but we would be able, if, say, for example, double the coverage for some countries, etc. But that requires support. It certainly requires a bit more grant resources, and governments needs to start thinking a bit more innovatively in terms of how we can actually scale up over time. But part of that scaling up also, for example, includes introducing new products. One of the exciting projects that we have embarked on is the development of a multi-peril agricultural insurance product. We know how important agriculture is to our countries. And again, we saw that importance being emphasized during the recent pandemic when we had the food chain supply disruptions. And there was clearly a possibility of a crisis as it relates to the availability of food. So one of the things that is now being emphasized, even at the CARICOM level, is the whole issue of food security. But in addition to the food security aspect is the fact that we strongly believe that there is still an opportunity for agriculture to grow, particularly in countries like Grenada, St. Lucia, Dominica, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Guyana, and so on, where we think that it can emerge into major economic sectors to not only provide food, but also provide food not just for internal consumption, but for export, thereby helping to employ a large number of persons. But in order for that sector to grow, we do need to address the long-standing impediments to the growth of the agricultural sector. And for example, the question about risk transfer. You know how difficult it is for insurance, for example, farmers to get insurance, but also having access to finance. But the interesting thing is that those two issues are very often related, because if there isn't an effective risk transfer arrangement like insurance, the banks will not give the farmers the financing. So we are on a journey to help remove some of these impediments to support the growth of the sector. Drought is also emerging as a significant weather phenomena in many of our countries, and we're also looking at that. I just want to highlight some of those. Housing is a big issue. In some areas, persons can't even get insurance for their homes. And if it is available, it is very expensive. We're trying to see how we can come in to be able to assist. And before I end, just to underscore the fact that, as the chairman indicated, we are a development insurance company. We were set up initially for the governments, and all the benefits, whether it be profits that we make, goes right back for the benefit of our members. We are not here to maximize profits for shareholders. That's not what we do. We are here to maximize value for our members, which includes, for example, making sure that we have our products remain competitive, they remain affordable to the ordinary man, in addition to some of the programs that the chairman would have indicated in terms of our technical assistance program. So we are very, very excited about the relationship that we have with the government of Grenada as well as the other countries in the region. We are growing. We originally started at 16, now that we are at 30, and we see an opportunity to expand even more. So I will leave it at this point, and of course, we'll be happy to respond to any particular questions that you may have. Thank you.
Okay, I'm now going to open the floor for a first round of questions, comments, either here with us or online. Any questions, any comments?
Yes, can I just say good afternoon to everyone? My name is Johnson Richardson, Informer Newspaper. And I'm basically relatively new to this insurance company. However, I recently went to Beryl. Then the name became a more household name because Grenada would have benefited significantly from your company. And so, what I want to ask you, given the importance, the sort of risk that is involved in the payout and so on, and now that you have all those increase in frequency in disasters and so on, how then you're able to meet those demands? Are you, as an insurance company, there must be you must be insured somewhere as a company. How are you able to meet those payouts? And I believe that given the increase in frequency with those nowadays, then more payouts would be forthcoming in not too distant future.
Well, I'm happy to start with an answer to that. Now, first of all, CCRIF really operates based on partnerships. We have partnered not only with our members, but certainly our donors and our reinsurers. So we've been looking at risk, not just climate related, but also related to other natural hazards, and estimating the amount of capital that is required to be able to really support the risk in the portfolios. What's important, I think, in the region is that the members have held together, and that risk pool actually helps a lot towards diversifying the risk in the portfolio. And with that, we're able to go to the reinsurance market. They see us very much as a development insurer, which means that when other insurance companies are facing issues with capacity, it's almost as if they reserve capacity for CRIF because of the mission of this company, right? As we expand, we are definitely, seeking new ways of partnering with donors, but we're really happy to say that at this time, and as up to yesterday, as recent as yesterday, I mean, many of our donors have really continued to pledge support to CRIF and the region, and I think this augurs well for the future.
Does anyone in the would anyone like to add to that response in terms of? Do you have a follow-up, or would we like to add first before the follow-up?
So as the Chief Operations Officer said, we started this company owned by the governments, the members, through the kind contributions of donors. That's how we started in 2007. We got contributions from a number of donors: Canada, UK, World Bank, European Union, Caribbean Development Bank, Ireland, Bermuda. I think I covered most of them there. There were sort of 8 countries that helped us initially. And then the member governments make a contribution as well. So when they come in and they join, they pay a participation fee, and then every year they buy a premium, an insurance. They pay for a premium to get coverage. So that combined financial contributions, donors and members, is how we've been able to build up the company over the last 17 years. And as the Chief Operating Officer said, as we go forward, and as the CEO said, with new products, we will need to get additional partners, and of course, we do not take all the risk ourselves. So the point you are raising is we have some part of our portfolio we see to reinsurers. And as the Chief Operations said, because we have such a good reputation in the market built up over many years, they see us as a preferred customer. They want to do business with us. They want to be associated with the brand that is CRIF. And so, even though they may turn away some people sometimes, we generally get a good audience. They want to have the business. And then we use that to keep some of the risk, retain some, and also to pass some to the reinsurer. So again, we try to be very prudent in how we manage the portfolio to ensure that we remain financially viable and sustainable as we continue to serve the members. Just thought I'd add that.
And like in the case...
Just a sec, our Deputy Chair wants to add as well.
Thank you so much for the question, Mr. Johnson. But just let me add that just as our Grenada has been a long-standing partner, member country within the portfolio from 2007 when we started, a number of our reinsurers have been with us from then. They were there at the table with us when we conceptualized CRIF, what we wanted it to do, and therefore, because of this long-standing relationship, we've been able to benefit from preferred treatment and preferred terms. And for all our payments, we're able to make the payments within 14 days on the assurance that our reinsurers will pay their share of the loss within the 14 days as well. So it's a solid partnership which we value.
Okay, and the payout here will be based on the assessment of the damages, or based on what the countries would have, the accumulation by the country over that period of time? Would it be based on assessment? Because 14 days is pretty quick. And therefore, a full assessment of the damages may not be complete within 14 days, but you already pay 44 million. Would that be, was that based on what that country would have, as in Grenada case, what they would have accumulated over the 17 years, or you have some kind of measuring tool on which you make those payments.
So thank you for a very good question. In fact, you're actually touching on the heart of the type of insurance that we provide called parametric insurance. And the reason why we use parametric insurance is to enable us to be able to pay quickly. Now, if you're going to pay within 14 days, and that's a short time, obviously you can't rely on the normal techniques associated with traditional indemnity insurance that you would know very well. Because typically when there is a major event, there is a loss. With traditional indemnity insurance, you would, for example, hire a loss adjuster to do a complete assessment. You know that can run into months and sometimes a year. And therefore, it means that the payout is going to be much later. But we're doing it differently. We are using what is called parametric insurance, which is really like a prearranged sort of a mechanism that allows us to be able to make our payouts within a certain day. So we take into account, for example, the intensity of an event. So, for example, in the case of tropical cyclone, a hurricane, for example, we use what you call the intensity of that hurricane. So there are different categories, for example, which enables us, based on the severity of that hurricane, whether it be, and I'm just putting it in a very simplistic way, let's say a category 1, because we know a category 1, right? We know a category 1 would be associated with a certain level of losses, or category 2, and depending on that loss, we're able to make the determination immediately as to whether or not a payout is due based on whether or not the trigger would have been met. So just to use a very simple example, the government of any government, but let's say the government of Grenada, would have purchased a hurricane policy where what you call the attachment point, which is that threshold that you must reach in order to qualify for a payout. So assuming that is, let's say, $15 million, and the losses turns out to be $20 million, it then enables us, obviously, to determine what that payout would be. So it is cost, and it's really based on a very sophisticated type of modeling. And one of the things I should quickly add is that in the case of CCRIF, we use, without going into a lot of technical details, but we use a very sophisticated model. We take what I call a model loss approach. Unlike maybe some other parametric insurance providers that might take a more simple approach, but it will not be as accurate. And while I'm on that point, let me also make the point as well that CCRIF, as an insurance company, we took the bold step in 2015 to develop our own risk models, or parametric-based risk models. And why we thought that was important? Because we wanted to make sure that whatever models that we use is relevant to the needs of the region. It accurately picks up the risk of Grenada, of Dominica, St. Lucia, Jamaica, and so on. Maybe more so than any other model that exists out there in the world. So we're doing a lot of innovation, a lot of exciting things around that whole concept of parametric insurance.
Right. So listen to the National Hurricane Center. You heard they speak about the US model and the European model when they're tracking the hurricanes, right? They're using models. And the different models will give them different results. It might come back Florida, it might go past this, it might go to Atlanta, it may go past me. So this model is the same thing. We have models, as the CEO said, that we've developed for all of these things. So in the case of a hurricane, wind speed. What is the speed? And as you said, the category tells you the wind speed. And based on that, and again, not the National Hurricane Center, the models tell us, and the damage generates. So Johnson, we don't go on the ground. If we went on the ground, Grenada would not have received this money within 14 days. We have a different type of insurance. But the reality is, as he said, when a country gets hit by a disaster, they want quick liquidity. They want cash. When I say liquidity, I mean cash. To do things quickly, to clean up, to give income support, to help with repairing a road, to provide water, whatever the needs are on the ground. So that is something that CRIF does very well once the policy is triggered. If you think back to Ivan, before CRIF, because at Ivan we did not have CRIF, what happened? We had to beg, we had to wait, some people promised, some delivered, late, some never did. So that's a challenge you have. If you have to simply wait, you have to get things done right away. The longer you wait to start the recovery, you hold up the country. The longer it takes, you hold up the economy. People suffer more. So what CRIF does really, really well, once the policy triggers, is to provide that payout immediately, puts it at the disposal of the member, the government, in this case Grenada, and then it can decide how it wants to use to help the situation on the ground. So we're still doing the assessment of burial, for all I know, but you have the money, and you will apply it as the needs see fit and as the assessment demands.
Mr. Johnson, I'd just like to add just two quick comments. The first one is around the importance of quick liquidity, because in the aftermath of an event like a hurricane, once you have money that you can mobilize quickly, it mitigates some of the risks which are inherent after, say, the hurricane. So, for example, if you need to get water into the area because there's no water, or you need to get electricity and so on, you have those funds to be able to mobilize those quickly. Because the longer you wait is the more you expose your population to even further risks. So I wanted to make that first point. The second one is risk company, and as a development insurance company, we also assess that risk ourselves internally. So we do not transfer every risk which we write to the reinsurance market. We determine what level of risk our capital can support within the company. So while you are transferring risk as a country to us, we are also transferring some of that risk to the reinsurance market. So I wanted to clarify those 2 points.
Thank you very much. Any other questions or comments? Anything online? Anyone? Yes, you can go ahead, Mr. Johnson.
Yes, I notice you have, I mean, what do you say you cater for government, right? You mentioned Nawasa and also Grenada. Those are statutory bodies, right? All government and so on. Were they based on recommendation from the government, or they on their own apply to CRIF for that kind of support?
Yeah, thanks again for the question. Yeah, so that one is an interesting one, because I do know in the case of Grenada, I do know that NAWASA would have applied on their own, and that is because of a program that was started through the instrumentality of the Inter-American Development Bank for the water sector, where we had this program to build resilience in the region, but specifically for the water sector, which comprises really 3 components, one of which is a multi-peril insurance program for the utilities, but there's also another component, which is quick response. It operates very, very similar to CCRIF. I'm not sure if you're familiar with CCRIF, which is this sort of umbrella organization for the electric utility companies in the region. And what they do is that one of their services is to help to provide a service in terms of responding, helping the countries to respond to the advent of a natural disaster. So, to use an example, if there's a hurricane event or whatever it is in Grenada, and there's been disruption in the water supply, under that component 1, the quick program, which is within CRIF, will help to mobilize support throughout the region to come and help restore the water supply. That is one part. The third component is one dealing with resilience financing, recognizing that in many water utilities in the Caribbean, there's need to upgrade the water infrastructure. And so this third component is ready designed to provide financing to help rebuild and to improve the resilience of the water sector. So it was, I think, a natural thing for NWASA as a water utility to come in and provide that support. In the case of Grand Lake, we had this very interesting situation where, although we had launched this program in 2019, it was actually the Prime Minister who contacted CCRIF and to inquire about what sort of instruments we had for electric utilities. He may have heard about it. And I informed him about the program or the product that we have designed specifically to address the transmission and distribution needs of the electric utilities in the Caribbean. And just to be very clear and just to provide a little bit more context to this, you know, the electric utilities companies generally can find insurance for the generation side of the business. There's the generation and there's T&D. But when it comes to transmission and distribution, but typically because of the risk associated with those assets, for example, the poles, the overhanging lines, and so on, typically you can't find insurance. So there's a gap. There was a gap in the insurance industry, in the offering, and so CCRIF came in, designed this product, and made it available. So we were pleasantly surprised when the Prime Minister called, and I think he's the minister responsible for Grand Lake, for infrastructure and so on. And within a short period of time, the electric utility came on board, and we were able to make presentations to them. They made sure they understood what we were offering, and eventually the board made a final decision to proceed. And as I said, within a matter of just about a year or so, they were able to benefit from a very substantial payout, $9.3 million. US dollars. Yeah.
Yeah, so, no, I mean, thanks for sharing that. And just to say, I mean, that was a wise decision because you see, 1 year, next year. And that's the thing with insurance, you just don't know.
Never know.
So, I mean, as the CEO mentioned last night and I think earlier today, for 17, 16, 17, Grenada received no payment. Some may have become discouraged and say, well, this is a waste of money. But you don't know when the hurricane will strike. What you do know, one will strike. You know, not if, it's when. And when it strikes, you want to be protected. That's what CCRIF offers. So in the case of, as he said, Grand Lake, they came in last year, got the payout this year, 9.3 million US. NWASA came in within a month, less than a month. Burial strikes, payout. Now in the case of NWASA, without that policy, NWASA has to find the money or they have to go to government and beg for it. Because of that policy, that pressure is off government. Because NWASA has the resources through that payout to be able to restore, you know, and to get the water supply. So you can't underestimate these decisions and why they're important for financial protection. If you don't take the policy, you are saying you are self-insured. And you have to ask yourself, can I cover this loss? And if I can't, it is wise to get an insurance policy. That's what we call risk transfer. You take it from yourself, and you put it to CCRIF. CCRIF takes some, and we put some with the reinsurers. Because we too have to be wise in how we manage our risk, which is what we do. So it's a very good question, because it helps to explain why these are important. Because some people see insurance as a waste of time and a waste of money. But in a season, a climate season, when these disasters are going to be more frequent and more ferocious, we need financial protection.
I just wanted to emphasize one point quickly, and that is that the utilities are also operating within its own risk pool. So the CEO mentioned CCRIF, and then there's its own risk pool for water utilities as well. This is very beneficial because, again, it operates almost akin to a mutual company. So there are shared benefits by more and more members in the region joining this risk pool, it's going to reduce the cost of coverage. It's going to mean that the policyholders can access additional benefits from CRIF. Now, again, the point is, on its own, these utilities typically cannot get insurance on its own. And within the pool, you actually can access the insurance, but at an affordable rate. And that's the benefit of CRIF and also a parametric product.
Good afternoon, Head Table. Eugenia Peters from the Grenada Broadcasting Network. Special good afternoon to Governor Entwine. Good to see you. Good to see you as well, Governor. So with what we're seeing with the intensity and severity of the weather systems, countries' economies, the fiscal space only allows what it would allow. What happens when there's more severe systems and countries are forced to provide more support and the policy that is in place only allows them to receive a certain amount? What are the options? Are there payment plans for the premiums? What happened? What is the proposal? What is the plan?
I can start, but I'm sure the chairman can add to this. But it's a very relevant question because insurance is one of many expenditure items, in a government's budget. Obviously, it's competing for resources. And of course, I am very sure that while countries would like to increase their coverage, because of fiscal constraints, they're perhaps not able to do this. But, I will give a lot of credit to the governments. They have come a long way. You could clearly see that over time or progressively, they've been increasing the coverage, notwithstanding the fact that some people consider the premium cost a bit high. When we started operations in 2007, there was coverage. Countries were ceding over just about $500 million to CRIF. Today, it stands at $1.2 billion. Of course, we have to take into account the fact that some countries would have joined after, so that would have been a factor. But what we are seeing is a commitment for governments to increase coverage. And in fact, one of the very important observations we made, in cases where, for example, premiums may have been subsidized, or where there would have been premium financing. So we've had a few cases, particularly during the global pandemic, when the agencies like the donors such as the European Union and the government of Canada provided some premium support to help them, cross that very difficult period. When that premium support came to an end, the countries didn't go back to the original coverage, they kept it. And they have been increasing. Again, you can clearly see that commitment. But one of the good things about CRIF, again, as a development insurer, we're always looking for ways and means of trying to help the countries. Climate change in particular is a big issue. And as you quite rightly pointed out, with the increasing frequency and intensity of these events, the gap is going to increase, the cost is going to be high, and we have to find ways and means of trying to help. You may have heard about the establishment of the Loss and Damage Fund by the donors and so on, and it is going to be operationalized in time for next year. And we intend to use our advocacy and our contacts and our relationship with the development partner community to help, request support or mobilize more support for our member countries. And I'm sure the countries themselves will be making similar pitches. But to make the point that what he is seeing is that there is a commitment by countries to increase their coverage. And as I indicated, while a number of them may not necessarily be at a very high level, you can clearly see that there is a desire to increase. But the other thing I need to point out, insurance is not the only thing in town. There are other instruments. In fact, Government of Grenada has other instruments that are supposed to be complementary. So, and that's an important point because it's not just, when you talk about expenditure, this is not the only thing. Now, having said that, there may be certain instruments such as contingent lines of credit, which is almost like a loan, which may not be an immediate charge on the expenses of the country. It only becomes a charge, for example, if the contingent lines of credit were to trigger, the payment is made by whether it be not the IDB, but let's say the World Bank. It only becomes an expense when you have to repay the loan over a period of time. You've heard about cat bonds. I know a number of countries are exploring that as a possibility. So the whole area of disaster risk financing has become quite interesting. There's a lot more awareness about the needs to pre-finance disaster risk. And coming with that is we've seen a plethora of a number of very interesting disaster risk financing instruments. So I just wanted to say that, and maybe the chairman might want to add to some of this.
CEO, just to say, so yes, we do payment plans. So if a country has a premium of $1 million and they're not able to pay all at once, they enter into an arrangement with us. They may pay it in 3 installments. We allow for that. We work with our members. Secondly, to say that, as the CEO said, every country, well, certainly Grenada, has some, or they are attempting to have some kind of layered approach to this disaster risk financing. So in the case of Grenada, the budget allows for a contingency fund of 2% of the total budget. So if the total budget is, say, $1 billion, then there's $20 million, 2% that the government can use for an emergency, for a disaster. That's built into the act, and they can do that. Then they have CCRIF, which is another layer, right? Because you have to have multiple layers. But before I even get to contingency, there's the Fiscal Resilience Act, which basically requires the government to save some money, to set aside some money for a rainy day. Okay? So you're not using all at once. That law is a very, very important law. I don't know if Grenadians fully understand the importance of that law. It was repealed last year, the Fiscal Responsibility Act, and became the Fiscal Resilience Act. Very, very important. And we saw how important it was during the pandemic. Because during the pandemic, the government of Grenada had the ability to draw down on resources that it had saved, coming out of the homegrown and all of that, and they were able to use that. Similarly, the government now has some that it can draw on. And then, of course, the CCRIF comes along, that $44 million US helps, and it's still a lot more to be done. I mean, when you think about rebuilding Carriacou, it would take a lot more than $44 million US, let's be honest. But it helps, it's a start. And then he mentioned the World Bank, well, the CAD-DDO. So I believe Grenada has a CAD-DDO as well, with a catastrophe drawdown option. I think it was about $20 million, if I recall. That's a standby arrangement. It's pre-approved, and if you need it, you draw down on it. So these are the layers, what you save, your fiscal buffers, your contingencies funds in the budget, CCRIF, CAD-DDO. And then, of course, how could I forget the pause clause, the hurricane clause, as we call it. Again, why is that so important? It gives you the ability to save instead of paying the debt. So Grenada just triggered, which means for the next 2 payments, which is the next year, because they pay twice a year, that money, instead of paying it out, they keep that money and help recovery with Hurricane Beryl. Governments need to have that discretion. They may choose to use it or not, but they must have that discretion. And believe you me, I knew of a time when we had no such discretion. I lived that after Hurricane Ivan as Financial Secretary, as PS Finance. So you want to have that ability to decide for an event of a certain magnitude, and Beryl is of a certain magnitude, that if you need that relief, because you need that cash to help. Because remember, you get that cash, you invest in the recovery, the economy rebounds, the society recovers, then you can continue to service. But you can't be servicing while people getting wet. These are real issues. So a decision has to be made. And you want to have the power to make that decision. The worst time to be trying to negotiate that is after the disaster. You have no leverage. The creditors have all the leverage. Trust me. We went through that after Ivan. So Grenada has learned and benefited from that. And that's a good thing. And that's a good thing. So as Isaac said, COP is next month, the CEO. We have to go and fight in Brazil, advocacy, to get more resources for these countries. Because at the end of the day, these are helpful, but they cannot by themselves fund climate resilience, as in hardening our infrastructure, lifting our seawalls, putting our poles and our lines underground. getting satellite or Starlink so that we don't have the situation we had after Beryl, where Grenada and Carriacou were cut off, essentially no communication for several hours, 12, 14 hours, whatever the time was. I was in London speaking to my sister who was in Carriacou, a doctor in the hospital there. Hurricane start. I'm going downstairs. And then radio silence for about 24 hours. Heard nothing. We hoped and prayed she was okay. We felt she could be, should be, but we didn't know. Until connectivity. The countries have to get to the point where they're resilient enough where you have connectivity. And Prime Minister Mitchell has been talking about whether it's drone technology, whether it's what technology, how you stay connected after disaster so you can bring immediate relief. First of all, what is the situation on the ground? What is needed? And then make the action to bring relief. So lots of things for us to do. CRIF is one player. By ourselves, we can't solve this, but we are an important piece. We are an important piece in that resilience toolkit.
I want to ask as well, I know the facility is specifically designed to assist governments. What about that thought or the call by farmers to have crop insurance? So oftentimes we see these payouts, but farmers on the ground, you hear they say based on what have been paid out, based on the damage that they sustained, it's not even a pinch in the bucket to help them cover the loss. I know you particularly deal with the Caribbean governments, but what about the possibility or conversation of affording the facility or facilities of a similar nature to maybe a farmers cooperative, or that would directly benefit people on the ground to actually cover the losses that they sustain?
So if I understand you correctly, we are in fact developing a multi-peril agricultural insurance product for the farmers, which we hope to be able to launch next year. Now, there are a number of ways that we can design this, and again, in consultations with the government. So we can do it in a way that we offer it as a sort of group insurance, but more at a sovereign level. So if you look at the fisheries product that we currently have, the one that we call Coast, the government is actually the policy holder, but the beneficiaries are the fisher folk. And so they're all part of this register that underpins the policy. We can design the program exactly like that. But there's also an opportunity to target what we call the meso level, where we can work with the agricultural cooperatives. I'm not sure if you have those. We can do exactly that, where again, there could be the clients, there can be the policy holders, but again, ultimately, the benefit is for the individual farmers. And the third possibility is that we can actually offer it as a genuine micro-insurance, but working with the domestic insurance company. We develop the product, but we essentially make it available to the insurance companies on island or in the region that can then eventually sell to their clients. But CRIF, the role for CRIF is potentially as a reinsurer. And because we would have developed the model, we can also perform the role of what they call the calculating agent. In other words, if there is an event, somebody has to do the actual calculation using our models. We can offer that service as well. And again, by doing that, and because we are a development insurance company, it really puts us in a better position to offer those types of services more affordably than if you had to go elsewhere. So we see a very great future, I think, for collaboration between CRIF and many players in the market, in the region, to be able to address some of those issues. Now, I'm not sure if that maybe you want to add. Did you want to add to it? Yeah.
So I'd just like to add, so there is a policy which has been developed with the support of the German government, and it is called Livelihood Protection Policy. It's a name I personally love because we talk about farmers, but there are so many vulnerable groups that can benefit from this livelihood protection policy. And it really is a policy that our CEO was just talking about. Because we are a development insurance company, and because we do not, I hope you understand retail as against wholesale, because we're not in the business to retail directly to the
Individual.
500,000 people that's in a country. What we do, we provide the policy, the support, the parameters to the companies locally who can in fact distribute that to the vulnerable group. So we're really looking forward to rolling that out. And our CEO calls it micro-insurance because it is insurance at the level of vulnerable groups that need to be up and about quickly, because when there's a loss, they feel it right away. They do not have savings to depend on for any extended period. So they must recover quickly, pretty much as what's happening now with Beryl. The country has to recover quickly so that business can continue. It's the same thing at the household level. We have to ensure that there's a product for the citizens so they too can recover quickly. There's a term we use in insurance that the government is always the insurer of last resort. When something happens, we all look to the government. So we're here to ensure that the government can respond to the needs of society, but we want to also ensure that the society, the citizens, can also respond to their needs as well.
And just as a means of clarity, the scholarship recipients, when would they receive? What's the process? What follows?
All right, we will be, it was made public last night, so we will be contacting them directly. These scholarships are through the University of the West Indies, so we work closely with the UE, either the undergrad division or the postgrad division, and the monies are funneled through UE and dispersed to them through that mechanism. So they will be informed. They were informed because they should have been online. They were invited to the event, but we will officially inform them. And they'll be getting that in a few days. Yeah. Any other comments or questions? Online, anything online? No? No? If not,
I just want to say, I want to thank Johnson and Virginia for Eugenia for representing media well this afternoon. It was just two of you, but you asked some very good questions. And I think what we're seeing, and of course, I want to recognize those who are behind the camera as part of media. But the questions are important because I think what we want to do, there's so much we need to help build and understand about insurance in the Caribbean, in Grenada, and why, as we deal with climate, the climate crisis, it has to be a vital part of what we do. So I think your questions help to bring out some of these things. Clearly, there are a lot more things we could discuss, and I hope we will have opportunities for further engagement, whether it's with Ms. Emmanuel and the team, with CRIF, well, we're all part of the CRIF team, or, individually. If you have any questions, just send an email. We want to be able to respond to that so that people understand. And although we talk about the governments, there's application for our own personal lives and what we do with home insurance and what we do with car insurance. After Ivan, there was a gentleman who said he had paid insurance for 18 years. No hurricane, he was tired of wasting his money. This was not making any sense. The year he stopped paying is the year Ivan hit. And that was not just a national disaster, no, that was a financial disaster for him. Because he had to go back to borrow to rebuild something that should have, started from scratch, something that he should have been covered. And of course, there were other challenges as well with other companies and so on. So, but the point is that this discussion goes beyond just the country, just the government. It's also how we operate at the individual level. Health insurance. And of course, everyone will say, but you have to have money for it. Well, I agree. Then we have to also prioritize how we're going to use our limited resources. If you're investing in something like a home, you have to protect it. And if you're investing in you, which is your health, you have to protect it. So those are discussions as we develop as a country and as a region that we need to continue to have.
All right. So what I'd like to leave with you, and I will ask members of our team, just in case you're not on our media list, to collect that information from you. But if you ever have a question or you ever need information, please contact us simply pr@crif.org. Right? We are here and we will provide any information you need. So pr@crif.org. So all I'm left to do is to thank you for joining us today. For those of you who are here, please stay with us for a moment. We have some refreshments and we can continue some of the conversations as we eat. We also have some packages for you. So I don't know, Chairman, see you if you'd like to. Right? Packages for you. So thank you very much, those online, those viewing. Thank you very much for being with us this afternoon, and we hope to be in Grenada again soon. Thank you.
One love.
Yes.